Welcome or welcome back to Bookmark Chronicles. Today I'm doing a review of In Every Mirror She's Black. This is a fairly new release. It came out on September 7th, so by the time you're seeing this video, it will be out. I received a NetGalley arc of this and it was quite an experience. So in this, you're following three Black women who all moved to Sweden for various reasons, and they're all very loosely connected by one man. So we have Kemi, who is a marketing executive who has been recruited for one of the top marketing firms in Sweden. Then we have Brittany Ray, who attracts the attention of a very wealthy Swedish man while on one of her flights. And then we have Muna, who is a Somali refugee who has been granted asylum in Sweden. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I was really pulled into the story. I love multiple perspectives, so I really enjoyed that part. And I was just really wrapped up in each of their stories and really invested in everything that was going on. I was really enjoying it until about 75%. Things started to get a little weird. Characters started making decisions that I felt were out of character for them, and also that just didn't make a lot of sense. And so I was wondering how it was going to end, and then the ending left me speechless. There were signs that it could have ended that way, but I didn't think that it was actually going to happen like that. So I highly recommend this book. However, there are quite a few content warnings, including things like racism, sexism, classism, fetishization, tokenism, as well as suicide and sexual assault. So please make sure you look up a list. There are probably some that I might have missed because there is a lot going on, but for me, it was still worth the read. If you are interested in reading In Every Mirror She's Black but have not yet, this is your official spoiler warning. All right. I had a lot of feelings while reading this book. Some of them were good, some of them were bad, but at the end of the day, I was still rooting for all of the characters. I wanted a happy ending for all of them, and it turns out that only one of them kind of gets somewhat of a happy ending. So let's go through the characters. First, we have Kemi, the marketing exec. So she is doing really well at her company. She has won, it's like National Marketing Executive of the Year 2 years in a row, but her boss is this white man who very clearly is attracted to her, and it makes her uncomfortable. So when she gets recruited to go to Sweden, it's because they had a very tone-deaf marketing campaign that was released. Somehow it was approved and they got a lot of backlash for it. So they wanted to recruit her as the Director of Global Inclusion and Diversity, I think it was called. And so she's kind of fighting this battle of, should I go? This feels a little tokenizing, but then they promised all these great things. She would have full creative authority, and they're doubling her pay, and they're gonna handle all of her moving expenses. And she's like, okay, well, it is a good deal, so I guess I'll take it. In addition to that, Kemi is sort of struggling with dating. She's like fighting this dichotomy of being a strong, independent Black woman, but also wanting a companion and having a loving partner. And that part really irritated me because those two things are not mutually exclusive, despite the fact that a lot of people seem to think they are. And I kind of just want to be like, girl, if you want to just keep living your best life. But anyway, she moves to Sweden, and while things start off really well, she ends up pitching something that the rest of her team thinks is really risky, but they pitch it to the company that they're working with, and the campaign is a huge success. But then things start getting a little weird. She was supposed to report to the CEO of the company. That changed. He's not really around. She's not really having the opportunity to work with him like she was told she would. And she feels disconnected from her colleagues. She's still learning how to speak Swedish, and occasionally like someone will get annoyed that they have to say something in English for her, despite the fact that literally it seems everybody in Sweden speaks English. On top of that, she does meet a man named Tobias who is Afro-Swedish, and they hit it off, but she's doubting if they should be together because he doesn't make as much money as her. And her twin sister kind of puts this seed of doubt in her head that if he's not making a certain amount of money, then he's not good enough for her. So she's struggling with that. I'll get to how her story ends in just a bit. Brittany Ray is a former fashion student turned model turned flight attendant. And she basically was encouraged to drop out of fashion school by this famous fashion designer, some old white dude, and he tries to assault her. She had already dropped out of school. She was modeling for a little bit, but then she's like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go to flight attendant school, and that's what I'm gonna do. While on one of her flights to London, she meets Johan, also known as Yanni, who is the CEO of the company that Kimmy was recruited for. He asked her on a date and she's like, I have a boyfriend. And he's like, oh, but please, just like one dinner, just go on one dinner with me. Super pushy, really fucking creepy in my opinion. For some reason, this bitch goes to dinner. She goes. And so while she's sitting there talking to him, she realizes this was a bad idea. Not only because she don't know this man, because she has a boyfriend. They live together. They've been together for 4 years, but she decided to go on a date with some random white dude. For what reason? Who the fuck knows? So during the dinner, she's like, you know what? I can't do this. So she gets up and she leaves. Yanni follows her and she's like, I can't do this. I shouldn't have been here. He decides at that moment that it's a good time to kiss her. So she slaps the shit out of him and she leaves. When she gets home from London, there are flowers. She thinks that her boyfriend bought them. She's like, what's the occasion? He's like, you tell me. Hands her a card. It says, I'm sorry. It's from Yanni. One thing that was never explained is how the fuck he got her address. Because that's creepy as fuck. They had 2 conversations at most, and this man sent her flowers, and it doesn't stop there. He keeps sending them. The first time he sent them, the note said, I'm sorry, and her boyfriend, Jamal, was like, what is he sorry about? She never told him about the dinner. I mean, she shouldn't have went in the first place, but whatever. The 3rd bouquet comes, and the note says, I'm coming to see you. Again, don't know how the fuck he got her address, but at this point, Jamal is like, oh, so you're having an affair? Cool, I'm out. So one night, Jamal's packing his shit. He's like, I can't believe this. This is ridiculous. And she's like, nothing happened. We can work through this, blah, blah, blah. And the doorbell rings. Guess who the fuck it is? This dude showed up at her house unannounced. Fucked up her entire relationship. So Jamal ends up being the one that opens the door and he knocks him out. Can't say I'm mad about it. But Brittany's immediate response is to help Yanni. So Jamal saw that and was like, yeah, I'm done. I just want to focus on Jamal for a second because he is fantastic. He's absolutely wonderful. He's a business attorney. He makes a lot of fucking money. He's fantastic to Brittany. And even after they broke up and all the other shit started happening, he was like, I'm gonna help out with the rent for 3 more months. When he was getting contacted by the tabloids, he was like, I'm gonna do what I can to protect you on my end. I'm not gonna say anything bad about you. I just want to let you know that people are reaching out to me. Totally mature. Handled everything perfectly, and that's what she threw away. But anyway, so that night Jamal leaves, he packs his shit, and that ends up being the first sexual encounter between Yanni and Brittany, which was really fucking weird because literally they do not know each other. And it basically turns out that she was just attracted to him because he had money, but so did Jamal. So yeah, Yanni had more money, but I don't feel like it was worth it. I just couldn't agree with the decisions that she made. Again, we will get to how her story ends a little later. Muna is a Somali refugee. She lost her father back in Somalia before they left. While they were traveling to Sweden, she was with her mother and her brother. They both drowned. So she gets to Sweden and she's all alone. She's living in this asylum, and it is an asylum center for refugees that Yanni donates to. We don't really know why. That is never answered, why he donates specifically to that center. He does make a comment at some point about brown kids have it hard here, but that's about it. There was really no further explanation. So while at the asylum center, she stays there for 2 years. She meets this man named Ahmed and they start to fall in love. However, he's really struggling with immigration and he ends up dying by suicide. And the way he does is that he actually lights himself on fire in front of everyone. So once again, Muna has watched another person that she loves die. So she moves out of the asylum center and she's put into subsidized housing with 2 other Somali women. They start forming a close relationship, but then things don't work out. They start to drift apart from each other for various reasons, and Muna feels like she's losing her family all over again. So Muna is the youngest. She's 18, and she really struggles with loneliness and just feeling like everybody that she loves dies. So once her roommates Yasmin and Khadija are no longer living in the apartment with her, the woman that she ends up living with, I don't really know what her title is. I guess she's a social worker. She's been helping Muna along her journey once she moved out of the asylum center. So she constantly comes and checks up on her, just sees how she's doing, and they end up forming a really close relationship. And at one point she says that Muna's like a daughter to her. This woman ends up getting cancer and she also dies. So Muna keeps thinking that anyone she loves is going to die, and she has a really hard time dealing with that. She's also still very young, so she just like doesn't know what to do, but she ends up starting to lose her will to live. Before I talk about the way their stories end, I do want to talk about other characters. Yanni is on the spectrum, however, it's never really addressed. Like, his parents never really wanted to address it because it meant admitting that their son wasn't perfect and all this other crap. So he does have some quirks, they're called in the book. So there's a scene where he gets into an argument with his mother and he gets really upset, and when he starts to get overwhelmed or overstimulated, he tenses up, he clenches and unclenches his fists. He might start rocking back and forth, and in that particular scene, Brittany realizes what's happening, so she starts to calm him down, and in her head she's thinking, why doesn't his mother recognize the signs of him being overwhelmed? Why is she continuing to argue and yell at him when he's already overstimulated and starting to have a breakdown? Which is a very good point. Essentially, they just never admitted that he was different or did anything to help him be able to calm himself down when he starts feeling this way. So Brittany brought up a really good point about that, and it definitely should have been addressed, but at this point he's a grown-ass adult. He's like in his mid to late 30s, and so he's just been like this his entire life and he doesn't really know how to handle it. But Brittany comes along, and that's one of the reasons that he appreciates her, is because she knows how to calm him down and she doesn't mind his quirks or how he's different, whatever. Yanni has a best friend named Ragnar, I think. He is a piece of shit. He's racist. He keeps saying he doesn't understand why Yanni won't just marry a white girl, thinks he has a fetish, which he does. But also then he tries to have sex with Kemi, which makes no fucking sense. Literally, it was the worst. So, like I said with the synopsis, we're following these three women, and eventually you assume that their storylines will converge, and they sort of do. However, it was not at all what I expected. There was literally only one scene with the three of them together, and it didn't go the way you would have expected. And in that particular scene, Kemi introduces Brittany to Muna, and Brittany sort of like sneers at her, which makes no sense because it was really out of character for Brittany, so I didn't quite understand why that happened that way. Oh, that's what I forgot to mention. Muna also works as a part of the housekeeping crew in the building where Yanni and Kemi work. So that's how they end up meeting. Muna occasionally helps her with her Swedish and tells her which stores are African owned for certain things that she may need. And then Kemi is invited to Brittany's birthday party, and instead of forming like a sisterhood and becoming friends, Kemi insults her multiple times. And it was just like, Kemi's smart as fuck, so I was like, what are you doing? Like, why would you let that come out of your mouth? That is the absolute worst thing to say to somebody at their birthday party. But anyway, the ending. If for some reason you have made it this far but you still are interested in reading this book, definitely check out now. The ending was surprising to me. The only person who gets somewhat of a happy ending is Kemi, and she only gets to that point by doing something really stupid and having someone sort of insult her and fetishize her again, which is something that she's been struggling with. So at the holiday party, Ragnar is there because he's been brought on to help her with an account, and for some reason there's some attraction between them, despite the fact that their first interaction was unpleasant because Ragnar's an asshole. For some reason she's still attracted to him, so they end up making out in the fucking elevator while she's leaving because she's supposed to catch a flight the next morning with her boyfriend Tobias. They're going on like a long weekend for the holiday, but okay. So she's waiting for a taxi. He comes outside and he decides to get into the taxi with her. They start making out, freaking out the taxi driver because it's getting intense. So they pull up to her apartment building and she's like, stop, we can't do this. Go home to your wife who is pregnant with your second child. And he goes, oh, it's such a shame. You would have been a really nice fuck. And that's when she realizes that he never really wanted anything other than to fuck her, which was pretty fucking obvious if you ask me. And it's like, so you have this amazing man waiting at home for you and you fuck it up with this asshole? So then she goes upstairs and she's like, move back to the States with me, please. Which, like, good, I'm glad she's leaving. Clearly Sweden is not the place for her. This is not the company for her. She finally found a man that she loves and who loves her, but then she fucked it up. And I was like, why the fuck? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? So then there's Brittany. So what I didn't mention before was that 6 months after Yanni and Brittany start seeing each other, she gets pregnant. They get married. 3 months later, they have a baby. He's very insistent on their baby girl being named Maya. And she's like, why Maya? He's like, it's the most beautiful name I've ever heard. And she's like, okay, whatever, we'll name her Maya. It's not until Maya is about 2 years old when Yanni's mother forces his sister to tell Brittany the truth. And she shows her this old photo of Yanni as a teenager with this woman, also a teenager at the time, but she looks a lot like Brittany. Turns out this woman's name was Maya Daniels. Yanni met her while he was studying abroad in London. He fell in love with her. He wrote this long letter to his parents about how he wanted to marry her because she loves him as he is and he feels accepted and blah, blah, blah. She was pregnant. His mother paid for the abortion, and unfortunately Maya didn't make it due to complications. Basically, Yanni was so obsessed with Brittany because she looked like Maya. He named his baby girl after his dead ex-girlfriend and never told Brittany about it. So when Brittany finally confronts him, she's like, who is Maya Daniels? He says, I've never heard that name before in my life. And this is a breaking point for Brittany because the entire time that they've been together, one thing that she's noticed is that he gets really nervous if he's lying and he won't look her in the eye. So she thinks that he can't lie to her. He tells her this with a straight face, but she won't leave him. And I think she thinks he won't ever let her. She is financially dependent on him. She doesn't work, so she really doesn't have anywhere to go. I also don't think that Yanni would have ever given up his child, but it fucking sucks. That's awful. He's been lying to her this entire time, building this life on a lie. Basically, she's just Maya 2.0 to him. And that's how that part ends. Then there's Muna. So after this woman who has been like a surrogate mother to Muna dies from cancer and Muna finds her body, it's more than she can handle. She manages somehow to go to work that night. She gets off late and she's being harassed by a couple of guys. One grabs her butt and is like, oh yeah, I bet you're nice to fuck, whatever. And so she gets angry and she pushes him because he's drunk and he's like wobbling. She pushes him and his skull cracks on the ground. So she runs. There are people chasing her. It's set up to where you think that she's just running so she can get home, but she ends up going into the train station. There's a train coming in. I thought that she was going to wait until the doors open, she was going to jump on. Instead, she jumps in front of it, and that's the end. There were signs that Muna could potentially become suicidal. I did not think that it was going to end like that, and I was stunned. Honestly, it was really hard to read, and it was just really sad because I wanted better for all of them. So that obviously was not the ending that I was hoping for, but I do also think it's important that all stories don't have happy endings because for some of us, that's just how it is. So for books to not always have everything wrapped up in a neat little bow, I do appreciate that. It was still heartbreaking to read, but I'm definitely glad that I read it. So like I said, I did rate this 4 stars. It was definitely worth the read. I will be getting a physical copy hopefully soon. So let me know if you have read Never Mirror She's Black or if you're interested in it. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next video.